welcome to Podcasty 8, or should it be Pumpcasty 8 or something as a Halloween theme? We've hopefully got some Halloween recommendations for you at the end, just to try and keep you listening through the whole thing. That's the whole idea.
Hopefully.
So good morning if you're watching in the morning, or good afternoon, good evening, or welcome, isn't it? Introduction to some TV program. But anyway, hello wherever you are. Hello from me, and I'm sure hello from Al over there. So if we go right into it, so we normally start with what we've been reading. You want to start, Al?
Yeah, so it's been spooky season, so everyone tells me. So I've been trying to read roughly kind of horror adjacent, or some, kind of atmospheric reads. I started by reading The Talisman, Stephen King and Peter Straub. There's some horrific scenes in there. I wouldn't say it's necessarily horror. It's kind of, is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Who knows?
I can't remember. It's many years since I read it. So.
Yeah. I read some Lovecraft. So I read At the Mountains of Madness. That didn't take too long. It's about 120 pages, isn't it? So,
what was your opinion of At the Mountains of Madness? I really like it, but it's a bit of a... If you're used to reading modern books, I could see it being quite hard because it's all atmosphere and there's not a lot really happens.
I've only read 3 of Lovecraft's stories so far, 3 of the longer ones, to be fair. That tends to be his style, from what I've gathered, is that, it's the Victorian prose, but it's also the, like you say, it's a lot of tell, don't see. So, a lot of building of atmosphere and stuff like that. I will put a review out for it in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, I've got conflicting feelings with that story personally. And then I read a short story from this collection here. I read Black Destroyer by A.E. Van Vogt. I don't have conflicting feelings about that. The review for that will come in shortly. I've got very strong feelings about that. And then I just recently finished Skullface Boy, which is like an independent novel.
Criminality was reading that a while ago, I think.
Yeah. This is really different, very interesting. And then I'm going to read some Dresden Files to finish the month. What about yourself, mate?
I've still been wading through all the overpopulation literature in the world, so I've read numerous short stories. I'm at the moment partway through. What's it called? The Masters of Life and Death, Robert Silverberg, which is quite interesting, which is about this guy who was in charge of population control and somebody assassinates him and then somebody needs to take over. And it's all quite interesting. And it's more of a novella. It's probably, I can't remember. I've got an ebook copy, so it's probably less than 100 pages, I reckon. And I'm about halfway through that. I've reread The Invisible Man for a reason, which I've not read for a while. And I've just started... I'll show you this. I thought I needed to do something for sort of Halloween. This, which is called The Back of the Cthulhu, which is a collection of short stories written by various people, 21 people, and it's basically sort of tributes to Lovecraft in his stories. And my friend sent me this a few years back, and I've not got around to it. Apparently, there's more in the series. And I just started the first story, which is Pickman's. What's it called? Because Pickman's Model is one of my favourite Lovecraft stories anyway. And the first story is the Pickman's Other Model. And it's quite an interesting story. So whether I get through the whole of this through this month, I don't know, because I've got a few other bits I'm reading too. But it's lots of people.
It looks big.
It is.
The pages look large. Yeah.
500-ish pages, which isn't too bad, but the speed I'm reading at the moment, it is quite a bit. But lots of people I don't really know. It's S.T. Joshi was the guy who put it together. Apparently, is a Lovecraft sort of connoisseur who does lots of Lovecraft stuff. But there's really lots of... Brian Stapleford is probably one of the only people in here I really know. Anybody else in there? Yeah, I think he's probably the only author I know. But I've been told there's about sort of 4 or 5 volumes of this. So it's just quite interesting. I said I've been meaning to read it for years, and I love the cover. Very. So
do you think it's interesting that, like, Lovecraft kind of created this Cthulhu mythos, and it's just exploded. Like everyone makes fan fiction now, and it's like it's a big thing. You can sell T-shirts and stuff. It's almost like Star Wars is for science fiction. It's like anyone can kind of jump in and have a play.
It's quite weird because I've got my collection of his books are a bunch of really nice paperbacks actually, which I got earlyish 80s, and that's when they republished them all in proper collections. And as much as he was there, he was not a big thing, and he's got bigger and bigger over the years. More people have referred back to him because after that, then they did a role playing game version when in the mid 80s as well, which actually was a beautiful book with all these beautiful pictures in it. And I think it's because the world he sort of created is rife to put anything you like in it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't tell you a lot, there's lots of room for maneuver for people. And I said, I think he's got bigger and bigger. And I know everybody, every now and then, somebody brings up all the anti-Semitism and stuff like this on him. And you think, oh, yes, but he was, but doesn't stop his writing still affecting people. As long as you have that in mind and know about it.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop it. But yeah, that's basically been all my reading. I said I'm still not reading very fast at the moment. I'm just, and I've been dipping into some Star Wars comics as well, so it's normal. So yeah, so that's more my reading stuff really. Have I got anything really planned? Some more overpopulation stuff. I'm going to do Brian Aldiss' Earthworks, which is quite a small novel. It's probably going to be my next one after I've finished the Silverberg. But is this overpopulation thing's just got totally out of hand?
It's a rabbit hole that keeps on going.
I was originally going to do a week of videos, and then it's ended up. I've sort of not stopped them, but because it's got bigger than it want to, I'm just going to sort of start releasing a video every now and then over the months, and then I'm doing a load of writing around it. So I'm going to not get into the video portion early, but I'm probably going to have to do a video saying, by the way, this overpopulation thing, it's getting a bit out of hand here. Yeah, but I finished the 50s of all the short stories that I could find anyway, which is quite a good thing. So next, what was it? What we normally do? Seen on YouTube. That's what I've got listed in front of me. The ones that came to my mind was Middle of the Book March. I don't know whether you follow her.
I don't think I've subscribed to the channel, but I know of the channel. Yeah,
she did a really interesting video on assigned reading about feeling that all these events, your assigned books, and whether you should do that, and how all the pressure that puts on you. And that was quite an interesting video. I will actually below this podcast try and put links to all these if I remember. The other one was Obscure Book Adventures. Annie did 10 comics I will read next, which was quite interesting because she picks really offbeat comics. One of them was the comic of Snowpiercer, which more of later, which is quite interesting. And she just finds some weird European stuff as well because she's over in Netherlands, I think.
So it's not like Issues of Viz or something, though.
No. But yeah, her picks are quite interesting. What she manages to find. And then there was a really interesting one from Katie Books. I don't know if you know Kieran over there. Yeah, he did one on about the reading crisis, and he came up with a weird figure that in Wales, 20% of children will leave school and they will be functionally illiterate.
Wow, is that accurate? It sounds shocking. It sounds kind of shocking.
Absolutely shocking.
I mean, his content is a bit shocking at times. He likes to to thrill and stuff.
But he was going on about how in this day and age, and that's not sitting down reading novels. That's just they cannot function in normal society because you can't read stuff. And that's a really interesting video about that. But apparently Wales is the worst country in the UK for their statistics are worse for some reason. Who knows why? It could be just a blip. I've got no idea what the stats are like in the rest of the country, but
I assumed we were a fairly, well-educated society, but maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah, there's probably weird reasons behind it, but the video is very interesting, and in it he's doing raising some money for the book trust, the Wales version of that, and he's offering some quite interesting reading options for people with children. I haven't got any children, so it doesn't really make me, but he's basically just saying, if your child's interested in something, get them a book on it and read it to them. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, but I was shocked. 20%, that's like, so one in
That's crazy.
five,
Yeah.
1 in 5 of the children you see is not going to be able to, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just
It's got to
shocked.
be a scholastic issue of some kind. Like maybe
Yeah.
kids aren't attending schools or something. I'm not sure, but
Yeah. But yeah, yeah. But yeah, everybody should go across and watch that video, because I just think it's really quite interesting, and it's quite shocking in its
I
own
might have to
way.
check the link on that one. I haven't seen that one, so
Yeah. No, it just popped up on my feed the other day, and I thought, okay, let's have a look at this. Yeah, and that's the main ones that came to my mind, I think. Yep, that was all my main ones I was going to point out for YouTube. Uh-huh. Have you got any?
I've just been seeing, obviously the growing trend of October TBRs, spooky
Yeah,
season recommendations,
yeah.
Halloween, like pumpkin based stuff content, I suppose. But yeah, there's been a lot of recommendations. So I suppose if you are looking to read something spooky for October, I think it's not hard to find on BookTube at the moment. Definitely not.
Yeah,
Other than that, I watched the top 10 books by Tori Talks, who's like an indie not writer, and she's
yeah,
got a BookTube channel as well.
yeah,
She does a lot about live streams and stuff.
mm,
And her top 10 books was really diverse. It was a lot
mm,
of classics that she really appreciated learning, from college and stuff like that. Stuff that she reads with her daughters. So a lot of like
mm,
middle grade stuff as well in there. It was just it was very eclectic. A couple of books in there that I completely disagree with the quality of, but it's just really interesting to hear someone else's opinion. Like I've read the first five Malazan books this year, and the one I like the least makes her top 10 books of all time. So it's just really interesting to hear someone else's opinions on some of these books, because it's easy to live in a vacuum and just think of what you think of books.
yeah,
So that was really interesting. And then I've been watching I don't know what you call the hype for the audiobook release of Way of Edan, because it's being narrated by Alan from Library of Alexandria, um, and yeah, he's it's really really funny. It's a really funny audiobook. It came out last week, and I've been listening to it on the way to work in the car, and yeah, it is pretty funny. So if you're into audiobooks, I'm not a massive audiobook guy because I struggle with concentration, but because I'm
yeah,
driving, I'm like a captive audience, so it's a bit easier to actually kind of absorb it. But yeah, it's quite a funny narration for sure.
yeah. Because I that's one of the books that I'm sort of on my list of to read at some point in the future. Because I know you really rate it, and I must admit I do love his channel and his content that he does.
For me,
Uh,
it's the third book. It's a weird thing
mm,
because he took 18 years to write the trilogy.
mm,
He started writing in the 90s, I think it was. And it's the third book is really the book you want to read, but obviously it makes no sense without the first two books. They're all very, very different. The first book feels like classic fantasy. It feels like it does feel like it was written at the start of the 90s, effectively.
yeah,
Um, the middle book feels like any modern fantasy book. It feels like it's like a Brandon Sanderson novel or whatever. And the third book just feels like high art, high literature. So they're very different books, but
mm,
yeah, it's certainly worth checking out.
mm. Yeah. I know. I was going to say something else, but yeah, the audiobook thing is. So has he released it normal channels via Audible, or has he done his own release on it?
So I think the first link I saw was for Audible, but I don't have an Audible account because I don't really listen to enough audiobooks. I have a few
Yeah.
audiobooks, but I don't listen to,
Mm.
audiobooks to me are still on cassette tapes. You get from like the library or something. So it's just weird for me, the whole concept of audiobooks generally. So what I did, I went into the Apple store, I think, and I just bought a copy from like the Apple store or something, um, and downloaded that to my phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's available basically everywhere, I assume.
Yeah. It's quite
Um,
weird the popularity they've suddenly got, because I said my wife listens to a lot of them just because disability-wise, it's a lot easier for her. But I've always had audiobooks, like I've got stuff on CD from before Audible appeared and things like this, and it just suddenly weird spiked in popularity around about sort of 5 years ago, and everywhere now. And I just find it, I don't know why I find it weird, but I just find it quite weird in some ways, the way it suddenly got so popular. And now a lot of authors, that is one of their main incomes, is through the audiobooks.
Yeah. I think it feels very feels quite modern, right? It feels like a science fiction, you know. It feels like the future. Like everyone now is, you know, has like smartwatches or VR headsets and stuff like this. All this stuff existed, you know, back in the 80s, and you know, but it wasn't very good, and you know, it wasn't very effective. I just think they've got the delivery system now to make this kind of more modern form of consumption easier for people. I think it's just suddenly, you know, people are up for it.
I've got cassette versions of some Star Trek stories and the original Star Wars radio adaptations. I've got versions of and things like this, and it's
Star Wars tapes. Man, the Star Wars tapes. I had a bunch of those Star Wars tapes, expanded universe stuff, movie novelizations and stuff on tapes as a kid. I used to listen to them to the point where, you know, they'd be worn out. You know, they'd be getting all crumpled and stuff because you'd just be listening to them every night. Great stuff.
And so, have you been watching wise? Have you watched much? I noticed you in your briefing you sent across. You've watched the new Joker film, which is seems to have a bit of a mixed reception.
I think that movie is going to be very misunderstood. It's one of the best, you know, one of the most competently acted movies I've ever seen. It's exceptional, but it misses out on a couple of things. One is it forgets to be entertaining to a mass market audience. It doesn't even attempt to be entertaining. It really just effectively deals with like serious mental health issues, failures of kind of social services, and you know, it deals with the human condition in a very open and honest way, and actually doesn't attempt to make a cinema experience out of it at all. It doesn't even turn up to do that. It doesn't care. It doesn't care about your feelings. It would have been better as like a docudrama or something, or that you can download on the TV or something. I sat in, you know, a sold out cinema on like kind of the first night. I went with my eldest daughter and my wife, and I knew what to expect, and no one else did, and I was loving it, and everyone else was miserable. And it is an experience that's going to make you. It's going to make you feel horrible. It's going to make you absolutely miserable. It's, you know, it's the equivalent of spending a night in a crack tent. It's just like what you're going to see is going to be very real, and it's going to be quite traumatic, but it's not going to be entertaining in any kind of form, really. So it's going to be very misunderstood.
Yeah, I'll probably wait for that to hit stream. The problem we've had is the our cinema. There's been a film called The Outrun, which has got Saoirse Ronan in, and that was filmed here. And because we have one cinema with one screen, everybody's got a bit carried away with it. So basically, the only film that's been in our cinema has been The Outrun for the past 2 weeks. They haven't shown anything else. And I think, what happens if you want to see something else?
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to see that film because it doesn't appeal to me at all.
No.
As much as I like her as an actor, it's just like, no. So the Joker film hasn't even arrived here yet. So, but I think we'll probably wait for that to hit streaming. From what I've heard,
yeah, it's probably best. It's not really. I think it's really like the first made one for the cinema. Yeah,
I really like the first one, and I like Joaquin Phoenix, who I think is such a really good actor.
There is literally no drop off in quality between the first one and the new one. It's just that the first one was in a more digestible format, and this one isn't. They've just decided not to bother with trying to make it, you know, tangible for a cinema audience. So. But luckily, I put it in between watching the original Star Wars trilogy, and what I mean is like episodes 4 to 6.
Yeah.
I watched those, you know, 4 days apart in sequence, and I just love them. I absolutely love them. It still irks me all the changes they're putting in '97 and what was it? Is it '97 and 2007? I can't remember all the two times they inserted all that extra stuff.
Oh, there's loads. It's all changes because I've got copies of them without all the extra stuff.
Yeah, and in my head, I'm still watching the stuff without the extra stuff. So every time a bit comes up that I don't expect, it's really jarring. I'm like, that's not meant to be there.
Empire and Return aren't as bad as the first one, but I remember when you probably do as well when the special editions came out. Everybody so wanted to see them, was so excited for them.
Yeah. I went to the cinema to rewatch them all. When those special editions came out.
Because I watched recently. I've got a copy called the Silver Screen Edition, which is it's a fan thing that basically somebody has rescanned an original 35mm negative and cleaned it all up. So that is a total original. Apparently, it was in some Italian box somewhere in Italy. Somebody found it and they restored it, and it is a total original version because it's even the crawl does not say episode 4, so it's from 1977, and that is the version I normally end up watching. Because I've also got there's versions, I don't know if you've heard of them, called the despecialized edition.
Oh no, I've not heard of
which some guy called Harmy basically went through and reconstructed all 3 films using Blu-rays, a mixture of Blu-rays and stuff, so that they're all HD by removing all the extra bits. It took him years. And that legality-wise with these sort of fan-made projects, they work on the theory that you have to own the original copies.
Yeah.
Or you're allowed to get. Oh, they're not easy to get. Find them because you do have to do a bit of searching. Luckily, I've got about 7 or 8 different copies of the films I brought over the years. But I've also got the original VHSs, which are also unaltered. So I normally try to go for one of those, but every now and then I watch, like Rosie, my wife, she is used to the special editions, so because she's younger than me, so she doesn't get me, who gets sort of a bit obsessive. I want to watch the original editions. I want to watch the original one.
Yeah. One thing I noticed. Sorry, go.
Yeah, Empire and Return definitely are not as bad for the stuff they've been, but the bit that irks me in Return is when they've changed the ghost at the end.
Yeah. What I was going to say actually is the point you literally just made is Empire. The extra stuff doesn't bother me because effectively,
a few bits in Cloud City.
Yeah, you've got the Cloud City stuff, and you've got like the monster at the start in the ice cave. And that's about it. Everything else is they've kind of left it alone, and it works so much better than the other two, where they've added quite a lot of extra content to the other two that I don't think really helps the movies in any way, really. But I think people are serious enough about Star Wars. I think if they wanted to do, like a Blade Runner style final cut where they actually just recut that stuff back out, but leave in the stuff that works, like the touching up of the film and touching up of the special effects and stuff like that. Running, filters over the audio, whatever it is. I think people would go to watch it again at the cinema. They could buy it again on Blu-ray. You'd be able to put it on the Disney Plus or whatever it is. They'd make plenty of money out of it. It wouldn't be that hard to do.
Well, because Disney changed it again. They did re-released it, put it onto their thing, and because one of the big things in Star Wars is when Han shoots Greedo, and basically George Lucas swapped it around so that Greedo shot first to try and make him look less bad. And Disney put a thing in a word kaplunky that Greedo says in the middle of it, and it's like, where did this come from? What's that meant to mean? But I think the biggest complaint, and it's always my thing about it, is the first film, Star Wars or A New Hope, whatever you want to call it, it won all these Oscars. But the film we see now isn't the one that won the Oscars.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
It's been changed so much. And I think people should have a chance to see the original. And I've got no problem with the others existing. I have
no. Me neither. Yeah.
But it's like George Lucas, they wanted a version to put into what was it called, the Library of Congress, which they do with some films that they basically stored them for sort of posterity's sake. But the version he gave them was the special editions. He refused to give up the other ones, and
Wow.
yeah. So that's the version that is in the Library of Congress.
What?
Yes, which I just think
George is crazy, man.
Because that's what he wants to
Yeah.
think as his additions, and I've got a huge respect for the man, but I just think it's not what he made originally.
It is
it may
almost
not,
the very definition of a director's cut, though, because it's what he wants. You know, he was the director.
To me, the struggles that made people with films, the struggles that made people make these films, and the problems with them are what make the films. Makes the original things. The fact that they run out of budgets on certain things, or they have to bodge something, that creates a lot of the atmosphere for the film. So when you go back and redo the film, sometimes that bit is taken out of it, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Which is always like, I'm a Blade Runner, probably one of my favorite films of all time. I am totally against the grain because I like the original theatrical cut with the voiceover, which a lot of people really, really hate. Probably it could be a bit of mine because that's when I first saw it in the cinema. That's what it had on it, and for years it was very hard to get hold of a copy of it with it on. And that was changed because the studio executives wanted something. But I think it adds to the noir feel of the whole film.
Yeah. It's quite a noir kind of thing, isn't it? To have the narration. I mean, that's quite.
And at the end of the film, there's the bit of, if you have to cut, there's this bit going over all these hills and stuff, and that was actually.
That's the only version I remembered as a kid as well.
Yeah, and that was outcut from, I think it's one of Kubrick's films. Because The Shining.
Yeah.
Which Stanley Kubrick basically gave it to him, Ridley Scott. But to me, the struggles to make the films, and even the battles with the executives, sometimes directors need reining in. And as much as I love all these director's cuts and things like that, I sometimes prefer the original theatrical cut because they've been reined in. But I think in George Lucas's mind, he wanted a perfect version of the films out there, which is why he's sort of because he's very sort of visual. He's not really into actors, is he? If you read about him.
That's right. He got very up on his kind of Skywalker Ranch, Industrial Light and Sounds and all that kind of stuff. He loves his production company, doesn't he? He did a lot of work as a producer, and I think that's maybe his natural calling is as a producer, not a director. So that's probably why.
But he's like his first film, THX 1138. He did a version of that and put a load of CG in that, and as much as it looks good, it's moved part of what was in the original film. Now you can't get hold of the original of that either, but that's another story. But that's a little rabbit hole I went to. So Star Wars films. So what have I watched before we keep going talking about Star Wars for the next hour? I watched Star Trek: The Motion Picture because it was a Star Trek Day, which I still am totally of the opinion is the best Star Trek film. Well, it's definitely the most cinematic.
Definitely, that is true.
Yeah, because it just being on. Finished watching The Rings of Power, which I actually quite enjoyed this second season, and it actually seemed to pull a lot more of the story together from the rings. And I think a lot of people who read Lord of the Rings don't understand what the rings are for and where they came from. And I think if you watch this second season, you might get a bit of an inkling. It's totally inaccurate in points, and you can pick holes in it, but it's far better than the first season. And probably a lot of Tolkien scholars are twisting in their grave about it, but I really quite enjoyed it. Though there's a great battle scene in the penultimate episode. And then at the end of the program, for some weird reason, they go into the end titles, and you've got some weird death metal track that they've decided to put at the end, which doesn't fit in it at all. It's like, why have you done this? It's just really, really strange. So you've got all this orchestral music for the rest of it, and then you've got that at the end.
Weird.
But it's weird. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it as much as I could. And the other thing I started watching was Elementary, which I've been meaning to watch for years.
The what's the lad called?
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that. Yes, it. Yeah. God, whatever happened to him? Joe Lee Miller, he was in so much stuff in the 90s, you know.
Yeah, because he was obviously Train Spotting and
Yeah.
a few things like that. But now he's really good in it, and I've said I've been meaning to watch it for years, and I definitely prefer it to the Benedict Cumberbatch Holmes
Mm.
because he
I
was
watched the first 2 or 3 seasons of that when it first aired,
he
and
was
actually it was good fun.
yeah. So I think they've done a really really good job on that, and I like a good bit of Holmes. Um, and I also watched Reacher, which I've got about one episode left of the second season, which has been really really good as well, which is on Amazon. Uh, there was something else which I didn't write down, which I can't remember what it is now. And the other thing I'm watching is we've been dipping into 90s Space Above and Beyond. Do you remember that? Worst title to any TV program ever.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really bothered watching it, if I'm being honest. But I
Yeah,
remember it being on.
ran for one season. It's in some ways it reminds me of, even though it came out before, Starship Troopers, but without the satire. In some ways, it's a more serious sort of military in there. But then it also reminds me of a lot of the Vietnam films, and there was a TV program called Tour of Duty on the back into the 80s. So it was like following a group through Vietnam. But that's what it reminds me a lot of. But if you get a chance to see it, it's worth a watch. I remember seeing an odd episode back in the 90s, but not seeing the whole thing. And people rave about it. It's not raveable, but it's entertaining and worth watching.
Yeah. I
I
was I
think,
was a very poor sci-fi fan during the 90s.
yeah.
I never finished the first season of Babylon 5. I never
Oh,
finished the first season of Farscape. I never like there's so many shows from the 90s really.
uh,
Like where even like Red Dwarf, like I would watch it one week and then forget to watch it the next week and stuff like that. It was terrible. I was very bad. I was
we're
probably too busy chasing girls or something. I don't know what I was
yeah,
doing. I wasn't
we're in
watching
the
enough
middle of a
sci-fi.
fast rate rewatch that we've been doing for about 6 months or so. So, because I love Farscape. Farscape was what I've always loved about Farscape is all the crew hate each other to a degree. But yeah, back in the 90s, there was actually some really, really good stuff that sort of. There's an awful lot of stuff that sort of only ran for one season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that? I'm trying to think of there was a space-based police procedural show. What was that?
What's not the Jerry
Quite
Anderson
enjoyed
Space
that.
Queen.
Huh?
Not Jerry. Uh, there was
Trying
Star
to remember.
Cops, which was a British one.
Was it Star Cops? Might have
Yeah,
been.
which was a British one,
Yeah.
which I never saw, but I have a copy of, which I keep meaning to watch. Uh, there was a few random British things because you had Star Cops came around, then you had Bugs that ran for a few seasons, which was like a sort of espionage stuff in the future. Uh, I'm trying to think of any American space-based ones.
Well, obviously Battlestar Galactica came back and was very popular. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that. But it seemed to like from there they kind of like redid V and they did like a
yeah.
Terminator show and all sorts of stuff off of the back of
The
that. I
redone
think
of
it
V
was
was okay, but it wasn't sort of because
not
the
like the
original one,
original. Yeah.
the original
That's
because it was on the
terrifying.
yeah, it was on the LA Olympics. That's what I remember about it. And I remember because the first 4 hours were released and then the other ones later. And I just remember watching it being absolutely dumbstruck at it. And yes, the metaphor is a bit clunky when you watch it now. It's really obvious that but it is still very well done. And the
Yeah.
bit when she's eating the gerbil or whatever it is, when the
Yeah.
jaw dislocates.
There's a few scenes from that original show that really put the willies up me as a kid.
Mm.
Why my mum let me watch that when I was so young, it was horrendous. It was
But yeah, it was
very, very creepy.
in the UK. It was broadcast when the LA Olympics were on, and it had the highest ratings, I think, of anything at the time. And it was, I said, it's very good, and it's still very worth watching now. Because he went on to Kenneth Johnson went on to do Alien Nation, which is pretty good as well. Uh, but yes, before we go down that thing, and that's all I've been watching. I said I've not really watched many films, really. No, I keep meaning to try to. I just never get around to it. So, have you got much coming up on your channel?
I mean, I'm going to review those books I spoke about.
Yeah,
So they'll do like a, At the Mountains of Madness and Black Destroyer, Scarface Boy. They're all coming.
yeah,
I'll probably do a book haul, and then I'm thinking about I might do like my favorite horror stories I've read so far video or
mm,
something for Halloween, something like that,
yeah.
something topical. What about yourself?
Topical. Yeah, I've got a couple of overpopulation of videos coming. I'm still catching up on a load of old stuff. I've still got to finish my Wheel of Time ones, I must admit. I'm going to do one on the Invisible Man because I believe that the Invisible Man is a gothic horror, which everybody seems to forget because it's called a
I think
grotesque.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody assumes oh, it goes oh it's science fiction, but it's more of a gothic horror if you read it. And I just reread it, and it takes about half a day to read because it's really good thing with Wells is most of his stuff, even his long stuff, is short. Uh, and I said I forgot that it was called a grotesque romance originally, subtitled. But you read it, and it is really, really is gothicy and horror-y that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think people forget that it's more the likes. I'd relate it more to Frankenstein than I would to science fiction. Well, the argument whether Frankenstein science fiction is another one, but it's more down that route, I think, than anything else.
All
And
his stuff is so dark, really.
yeah,
Especially when you take it in the context of when it was written. It was so dark.
mm,
Whether he's talking about like the tripods, the Morlocks, the Island of Dr. Moreau is horrendously dark and
I love
adult.
that. It's my favourite of his. I must
Yeah,
admit.
that's just it's an exceptional book.
Yeah,
Very very dark, very adult.
mm.
Yeah, he's quite a dark character, really.
Yeah. Because the thing is if I can't remember Jenkins, isn't it the name of the guy? I remember right. Even though I only just read it, I can't remember the guy's name. But he, even before he discovers invisibility, the guy's a bit of a dick anyway. You work out. It's not so. Even though he's sort of going into madness, I think he was pretty much unhinged to start with.
Yeah,
Uh, in and I think you find that with a lot of Wells's characters, they all have got really weird quirks. They're never
yeah. They're flawed
straightforward.
characters. Yeah.
They're always very, very flawed.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely worth reading. And I said people seem to forget how dark, as you said, his stuff is. Uh, and all the adaptations, the best one, the most accurate one to the book, was a BBC adaptation. I think it was the late 80s, early 90s, and it literally follows the book beat to beat, and it's the only one that I think I've seen that ever does. And it didn't do very well because it was so dark and grim because it followed the book so closely. Uh, whereas
I
like
think they
the
did.
old Claude Rains films, as much as they're a little bit dark, the old black and white ones, and very clever in that, you've still got enough in there they're not taking you down deep, which I said the original book does.
I think BBC have got like a history of that, haven't they? Because they did a lot. They did a lot of different adaptations that were kind of perfectly put to the books.
Yeah.
Narrative and everything. Because they did the one of Dracula. I don't think it was a big hit either, but it was
Mm,
absolutely perfect to the novel.
mm.
And they do a lot of stuff, don't they? A lot more kind of romance and plays and stuff as well. But I think often their stuff doesn't really land as well because they don't dramatize it particularly above what's already in the book. So
Well, if you see their original version of the Day of the Triffids, that is incredibly close to the book. Uh, you've got one episode which is just a man with bandages around his eyes talking, which is, I doubt they do it like that now, but it works because it's slow. Uh, because now they seem to always want to leap into action and stuff, whereas
yeah,
those bits work really quite well. But as you said, I think the BBC have got quite a history of doing weird things like that. But I said, yeah, the Invisible Man one is just so dark, and it follows the book way, way too closely. And like I remember, they had the. Did you ever see the would have been repeated the early late 60s, early 70s? David McCallum, him of Man from Uncle fame. He did a series called
Of what?
The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I've seen
Invisible
Man
Man.
from U.N.C.L.E., but sorry, what?
David McCallum, the guy
Yeah,
with the blonde hair.
yeah.
They did a version of it called The Invisible Man, an American TV series called The Invisible Man, and
I
this
wonder
used
if
to
I've seen that.
I think it only did do one season. It used to freak me out, but he used to have this like rubber mask that he used to take off when he used to go invisible to do all his stuff, and
Yeah, it rings
it
a
used to
bell,
freak
that.
me out. Yeah, it got repeated a lot in the 70s.
Mm.
That's probably why I remember it as a child. There was also you've got that version of the Invisible Man. You've obviously got the really grim. I can't remember who directed it. Film with Kevin Bacon in 1999, I think it
Yeah,
was.
it was, yeah, 98, I think it was, yeah. But I think that is one thing they tend to get right,
Yeah,
is that every adaptation, the character is a bit of a dick, isn't he? He's
yeah,
like, it's some kind of like madness or criminal element
yeah,
to him or something like that. So
yeah. Because that is quite a grim. If you watch
yeah,
it
that
now, because basically he sexually assaults somebody when he's invisible, if I remember rightly, and it's. But that is part of the character of him. It turns him mad, and it turns him. But he started off a bit of a dick, which is why he did it.
mm,
There was
mm.
also totally slightly changing the problem. If you remember
Alan Moore, you
2008,
about to say.
sorry,
Oh, I thought you were about to say the Alan Moore Invisible Man character.
I don't know
Obviously
that.
from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, so
Yeah. Oh yes, him. Uh,
yeah, because he's a bit like that, and that's why it's a bit rapey in that, isn't he?
yeah. But there was a 2000 AD character called the Visible Man, and basically you could see through his skin, so you could see all his insides.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I think it only ran, I don't think it ran a full season. I think it could have been when they amalgamated with something like Tornado or something. But yeah, I can
Mm.
always remember that because there was all these intricate drawings of literally somebody's biology in middle of 2000 AD, which were really well done. But yes, so the Invisible Man, that's one of my things I've been going for. So, and I've got a few other bits I'm thinking about doing. It's just getting time to do them is half the problem. Because I'm trying to finish up stuff. I'm trying not to. I've got so much. I've got a few bits lying around that I need to finish up. Otherwise, people are gonna. If anybody comes back to me, my channel and looks at stuff, it all gets a bit weird because you started at number 1, but you've not done number 2, and I don't like that. My sort of obsessive tendencies does not like that. So I've got a few things like that to finish, and also I might do a couple of bit more on using Calibre, which probably nobody will watch because I did that weird video that I did off the cuff showing how I use my Kindle because I don't do huge amounts of Kindle because I'd rather have the real books, and I use a lot of stuff. And weirdly, this one video in 3 days got over 5,000 views, which is considering my average view count is probably 100 at most. It's
Mm.
like, okay, what happened there? It's really, really, really weird. It's basically because there was all these videos flying around with people saying, you need to get rid of Kindle, get a Kobo because then you can free of all the Amazon. I thought, well, if you've already got a Kindle, why not use it? And I
Mm.
don't have issues with mine. I said I do a lot of sort of Project Gutenberg and bits like that and put them on there, and it's quite easy to do. And that's my main reading on it. But I just thought, okay, I'll just do a quick off the cover video. So I did this off the cover video, and then all these people started watching it. It's really, really strange.
It's
So I
funny.
gained about 50
People
subscribers.
obviously, yeah, they want that content, don't they? So they're going to watch it.
Yeah. So if you want to get a really popular channel, just do Kindle content on it. Yeah. But yeah, that was really, really strange. Uh, I want to do. I've got lots of weird, weird books and things lying around that I've had for years, and I was thinking of doing a little collection of videos of just saying about curiosities, weird books I've got. I just do short videos on those, but I haven't decided how I'd do that yet. I suppose you could do them as shorts, but I don't like shorts because I very rarely watch
Yeah,
them.
I'm sure you could kind of Twilight Zone it or something.
Yeah,
Obscure stuff from the shelves.
yeah. I've got some really weird things. I've got a book on skull radiography, uh, signed by the author. Weirdly,
Mm. If you could get like
which is another story.
need
Uh,
like a Vincent Price sound cut or something, and then just stuff floats off the shelf on a on a piece
Yeah.
of like fishing line or something.
More Vincent Price later. But yes, that's what's been going on my channel. And I said, as we know, it's Halloween coming up.
Tis the
Uh,
season.
it's a season to do pumpkins and things, which is uh, actually totally random. Have you ever seen the Terrifier? I keep seeing a thing about Terrifier 3, and I'd never
I
heard of the
no,
film.
I've not watched any of the Terrifying movies. No.
I'd never even heard of them. And then they're pushing this thing, this weird clown thing on the third one, and I just thought, okay, I've never even heard of this series. But whoever's doing the publicity for it is doing a bloody good job because it's
Great
everywhere.
job, yeah. It the series makes lots of money. It's just not my kind of thing, really. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Uh, so yes, as I mentioned, we have got some recommendations, and I mentioned to Al that maybe we'll do some films and book recommendations for Halloween people, anything a bit different. So, shall we start with the books?
Let's do the books. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Uh, so mine were, I just remember what I put down. One of mine was actually The Invisible Man because I think it is definitely a gothic horror novel, and it's very short. And if you want something quick to read, it's great. And let's find the other ones. Yeah, the other one is The Thing. John W. Campbell's The Thing. I reread that this year, or was it early last year? And I forgot how good that book is.
It's really good.
It is
Yeah.
really good, and it's weird things because as you go on and as it gets grimmer and grimmer, as everybody sees it, the language gets sparser and sparser, and you don't really notice
Mm.
it initially.
Mm.
But it doesn't need it. But it is just such a good little novella, and I can't recommend that highly enough. And the other one is a really often one. Is I've not read this for years, so but it came to me. I'm not big into horror books. I've read a bit of Clive Barker, which I quite like. But one book that always stuck with me was Ramsey Campbell's The Doll Who Ate His Mother.
Oh,
And and it's one of these books that you read and you know quite early on what's happened, but you're waiting for somebody in the book to
mm.
admit it. And
Mm.
it just all built up. And I read that probably when I was about 18, 19, and it freaked me out. And I've not read it since. And I
Yeah.
think other people should get freaked out by it.
Hmm.
Because I've read some of his short stories, and he's a very good writer, and he's well respected in the sort of horror genre. Uh, but I also always remember the cover of that book as well, because the cover had this demonic-looking baby on it. So yeah, that's three that I thought of for books that I've tried to get a bit off the beaten track for. So
Yeah, I went with a theme. So I went with vampires as my theme. I thought it's quite, it's quite thematic, I suppose, for the season. I three different styles of vampire book. One I think is really, really effective and creepy in Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I think that's very effective at giving you the chills and giving you that kind of classic vampire vibe. Um, I don't think you can go wrong with Dracula by Bram Stoker. I think that's one of the best written novels I've read. The first half of that novel is just exceptional. Um, and thirdly, I've gone with something a little bit horror adjacent in I Am Legend. I think that is an exceptional
yeah,
vampire novel as well. Um, Obviously, it's a different style. Obviously, like it's kind of dystopian, post-apocalyptic vampires, I suppose. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's always an
certainly,
argument whether they're vampires or zombies, isn't it?
yeah, I think they're definitely vampires.
Yeah, no,
It's
I think
just
so.
my opinion
Yeah,
based on the rules and what we know about them and the way they act and stuff like that. Um,
but the
but yeah,
ending, I love the ending. The ending is
oh,
just
the ending
stunning.
is I mean, well, I'm not going to spoil it on here, but yeah,
Yeah.
everyone should read that. It's what 165, 170 pages.
Mm,
I mean, you read it in like a couple of sittings. It's so good.
mm,
I Am Legend, yeah, definitely.
mm. So on the films, the ones I picked was Shadow of the Vampire, which was released about 2000. I don't know if you know it. It's
Yeah, I
about, sorry,
no go.
yeah, yeah. It's got John Malkovich, Willem Dafoe in it, and it's about the making of Nosferatu. And Nosferatu was basically made to circumnavigate the copyright of Dracula, and that's why it happened. But it's like a fictional making of Nosferatu, where everybody's scared of the main character, the main guy in it.
Hmm.
The main actor refuses to uh, appear anything but in character. Will only film at night. So there's always this implication: is he actually really a vampire? And it's a great film, really long,
Yeah,
it's about 20 minutes. Uh, and I don't think many people know about it. And
yeah.
because I recently saw the trailer of the new version of Nosferatu come through, it came to my mind.
Yeah, I only watched that when it first came out. My brother's a very big fan of that movie, and yeah, I probably should rewatch it because it's been 20 odd
Mm.
years or whatever it's been now. But yeah, he
Yeah,
loves that movie.
yeah. Because they dropped a new trailer because they're doing a version of Nosferatu.
That
And
trailer
what was
is
great about the trailer,
wicked. I love it.
yeah, and what was great about the trailer was they didn't show Nosferatu at all. Uh, but I've seen the original. Have you seen the Klaus Kinski one?
Yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah, in the
seen the
seventies.
original
Yeah,
before,
but
a long
yeah, it's
time
all.
ago.
I only realised a few years ago that the reason Nosferatu existed was circumnavigate the copyright. I never knew that. So
It makes sense because like
yeah,
even if you look at that new Nosferatu trailer,
yeah,
that could easily just be a trailer for Dracula.
yeah,
Like 80% of the content
yeah.
is
Pretty well,
literally
mate.
in the order it appears in Dracula. So
Yeah, that trailer's got me interested anyway.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
massively, so such a good
yeah,
trailer.
yeah. And the second film is one of my favourites ever, 1971, The Beast Must Die, which is I have the Blu-ray here, and it's
I have
basically
not seen that.
it is stunning. It's the one with the werewolf break, the original film with the werewolf break, and basically it's this rich man who invites all these people to his estate because he believes one of them is a werewolf, and they're basically because he wants to hunt the werewolf and kill the werewolf, and it's very 1970s. There's some great 1970s music and but I absolutely love the film. And in the middle you get a werewolf break, and it tells you to guess who is the werewolf. Which if you saw my Halloween
Yeah, I
trailer,
did. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember it.
that's where I stole put that from, and I love the film. I thought I'd recommend that enough, and I think it was an Amicus production, so Amicus did lots of these sort of low budget stuff. And the final one is The House on Haunted Hill, William Castle film from 1959. It is out of copyright, so there is a version on YouTube, which I'll put a link to below, full version. Vincent Price, people going into it's the famous uh, people getting invited into a haunted house to find out what's going on. But it's William Castle, and William Castle did the Tingler. If everybody has heard of the Tingler, and he was a great showman. And with the Tingler, it was this thing that was meant to electrocute people. So in some of the showings, he put he electrified some of the chairs. So partway through the film, they'd press a button and people would scream because they'd leap up. Which you think, how did you get away with this? And the house on Haunted Hill, he basically put skeletons that used to come through the cinema, all as like sort of 3D before 3D existed. And he did a load of 3D films when the 3D of the 1950s came through as well. But House on Haunted Hill, Vincent Price, what more do you want? And it
Yeah,
is really, really good. And I said it's on YouTube, and I will put a link to it below because I said it's totally out of copyright, so hopefully nobody will take it down. There is a colorized version flying around. Don't watch that because the colorization is horrible. And so that's my three films that I thought of that I'd recommend.
yeah. I went for a theme again for my movies, and that's John Carpenter because for me,
Yeah,
no Halloween is Halloween without John Carpenter. He is like my childhood. As a kid, it was always let's stay up and watch John Carpenter. So I chose pretty obvious picks. I chose Halloween 2. I always really appreciated Halloween 2. I think it's very like it boils down the the formula to its perfect state. You know, Michael Myers is you're trapped in a hospital at night with Michael Myers, and that's it really.
mm,
Um, then the thing, for obvious
yeah,
reasons, just because it takes what is a great story and just elaborates on it with great acting and great effects, and it's just got a great sense of atmosphere.
yeah. And having the
Um,
nerve to do that ending.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
We was talking about great endings. I mean, that's
yeah,
the fantastic ending. I mean, just the amount of videos that are online already about people just thinking about the what makes up that ending. What actually happened at the end of that
yeah,
movie with the characters. Um, it's yeah, it's a rabbit hole you can definitely go down. And
yeah,
finally, I just went for one that's maybe less lesser known, which is Prince of Darkness. So it's post-apocalyptic, deals with kind of zombies and Satanism and stuff like that. Yeah, again, it's got Donald Pleasance in it because it's
oh
John
yes,
Carpenter, and it's a fantastic movie, um, and one that maybe people don't necessarily know about as obviously everyone knows Halloween, everyone knows the thing,
yeah. I don't
but
think
yeah,
I've
you
seen.
could have gone.
I don't think I've seen that one actually. Thinking about it,
It's great.
doesn't
You'll
ring
love
a
it.
bell anyway.
I watched a stream last night of it was Criminoli and Mike from Mike's book reviews,
Yeah,
and they did a recommendation at the end of their stream,
yeah.
and Criminoli recommended Day of the Dead,
Oh
which
yes,
I'm going to come out and say is the best of the
oh
Dead
yes, it
movies as
is.
well. It is. It's just, but again, it's the one that no one knows about. Similar to the remake of Night of the Living Dead, the '80s version. Um, in that they are arguably the two best movies in that series, and no one ever watches them.
Yeah. The Day of the Dead was the first one of Romero's zombie films I ever saw.
So good.
Weirdly, because I saw that, and then a friend of mine had at the time the uncut version of Dawn of the Dead was banned, and a friend of mine had a dodgy VHS copy of it. That half of it was in black and white because it was that dodgy. Uh, and I remember watching that because if you saw the cut version, the cut version that was released around that they allowed in the country at the time, it was terrible because they just took
Mm.
all the stuff out of it. But yeah, Day of the Dead is definitely the best one of those zombie films.
Yeah,
It's just
definitely.
everything, and obviously you've got the iconic zombie saluting. But
Yeah.
yeah, weirdly because I think about it, but when did it come out 83? So that explains why it's probably the first one I saw. It came out about 83 because it's sort of about the time I was getting into stuff like that. What else did they recommend on there? Anything?
I can't remember. They did. They recommended three
Yeah,
or four movies on there,
I'll have
um,
to.
and it was good stuff. But it was quite a long stream. It was quite
Yeah,
late in the evening, and the one I remember hearing, I had to like quickly,
yeah,
type a reply to Ollie to say, amazing pick, basically.
yeah.
Definitely one I would have picked myself.
Mm,
Yeah, it's one. It's painful sometimes when you've got a movie that is a best in class movie and no one ever watches it, no one ever knows about it. So I thought it was
mm,
just a really good pick. He pulled that one out of the ether there.
yeah. I quite like the one of his later ones, the one with when they're in the city.
Oh, it's that Land of the Dead, wasn't
Is it that Land of the Dead? Because there's the one where they're on the farm, isn't there, with
it?
the
Yeah.
girl horse, which I think was 20. But yeah, it must be Land of the Dead. And I really quite like that one. I think that one's done quite well.
Hmm.
The one with the horse one is a bit, it's okay, but I think they were sort of losing the track. And I think,
What was that, Diary of the Dead? Which one was
or is
that?
that Diary of the Dead?
I don't
All
remember.
got very confused.
There's been quite a few of them.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
another random horror thing for if you want to go George Romero's Monkey Shines, which is the one about the assistance monkey. Uh, uh, this guy is a paraplegic and he gets into this test thing where they're using instead of an assistance dog, a monkey to help assist him. And it's a George Romero film, so it all goes a bit wrong.
yeah.
And it is a great, great film.
I've not
Monkey,
seen that one. I'll have to check that one out.
yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really cheesy, but it's very, very well done. Um, that just came to mind. But yes, that was all my sort of Halloween recommendations because I'm not big into horror. There's certain bits I do go down avenues for, but it's
Hmm.
not for me as a genre. It's not got enough to keep me entertained all the time.
Yeah, I like really well shot stuff. Like
Yeah.
that trailer for Nosferatu,
Oh yeah.
that literally just came out. That spoke to me quite a bit. It reminded me of the trailers for Witch that came out a few years ago, and
Yeah.
The Village and things like that. When I
Yeah.
I love that when it's like period set,
Yeah.
really good long shots and stuff like that. Yeah, really atmospheric stuff is what gets me personally.
Well, it makes a change from all the trailers when they just show you the whole plot of the film.
Yeah, that drives me
Show
mad.
you all the interesting shots, and you think, what was the point in that? That's why
Yeah.
I've sort of got to the point I don't. There's a film I'm 100% going to see. A lot of the time, I won't even watch the trailers.
hmm Yeah, media blackout. It's the best way if you're going to be into something.
Yeah, but I must admit, I saw that Nosferatu one. I didn't even know they were making a version, and I watched that and thought that this trailer's got me interested.
Yeah,
Really has got me interested.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
William Dafoe again. He
yeah.
tends to pick good projects. So,
No, I didn't like the one with Robert Pattinson.
well, you didn't like The Lighthouse?
I hated it.
I loved it.
I really,
I
really
absolutely loved. I thought it was a
hated
fantastic
it.
movie.
I really hated it with a
Yeah,
vengeance.
I tell you what,
I,
if you don't like The Lighthouse, you're going to hate that new Joker movie.
I really, really, I just thought, okay, you can. This just came across really horribly pretentious, and it's like, oh no, I hate it. But then I probably would go back and watch it again at one point, just in case. I sometimes have these judgments, and then you go back to film years later, and you think, what have I done there? Why did I judge that like that? So I've always
Yeah.
give something a second chance. But no, I really, really hated that. But then I hated The Green Knight by the same company, which
Oh, I
everybody
haven't
else
seen
loved.
that yet.
Yeah,
Haven't seen that yet.
which everybody else loved, and
Mm,
I just thought, no, I hate this as well.
mm.
And then I didn't particularly like the Viking one they did either.
Oh, was that
Uh,
The Northman?
yeah, it's
Right.
just like
I thought that was fine. I thought it was
it's
fine.
just that I don't know, something about it just bugged me. Maybe it was his muscles or something. uh, it just didn't do much. It wasn't bad, but it just didn't do much for me. I think.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
it was fine.
yeah. Mm. But yes, no, Lighthouse I absolutely hated at the time. I must have
I
to give
love
it a
that
go.
movie, man.
Uh,
Yeah, that probably made my top five movies that year.
yeah.
There you go. We don't always agree, Duncan. That's the thing.
Yeah. Taste is subjective, as they always say.
It certainly
It's
is. It
yeah.
certainly is.
But I said I will always give stuff a second chance. I'll always watch it again. Very rarely, unless it highly offends me for some other reason. Normally, I will rewatch stuff at some point. Uh, but yeah, that one I remember thinking, oh, it's good. We watched it at home, and Rosie wasn't really happy with it either. Oh, are we watching? I said, oh, it's going to be good. But yes, but everybody else loved it, so maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong.
If you didn't like that, do not watch the movie he made before that, Antichrist. Do not watch it. Because if you thought that The Lighthouse was pretentious, you have not seen anything.
I'm okay for a bit of pretentiousness at points, but it's just like,
Yeah.
uh, so yeah. So that's all my things. Anything else? I'm looking down anything else on my list here. Man reads screen. Exciting viewing or listening. I've covered most of the stuff that I was going to. Have you?
Cool. I think we've successfully wrapped up episode 8. Don't know
Yes,
how
we've
we've
done
got this
okay.
far, but we'll keep on trucking.
We've done okay, I think. Uh, so yes, I will say goodbye from me and Alan, and I said hopefully this will be up this week.